Ancient Roman soldiers marched for days on rations that included specific seeds and greens rich in what we now know as magnesium. Modern science confirms they were onto something profound. A 2019 study, published in the Journal of the American College of Nutrition, tracked adults over 50 consuming 420 milligrams of magnesium daily and found muscle strength increased by 31%, sleep quality improved by 43%, and inflammatory markers dropped by 28% in just 8 weeks without a single pharmaceutical intervention. What makes this special isn't just the magnesium content, it's the combination of bioavailable forms and synergistic compounds that act as the master key to cellular energy production. Yet here's what's shocking. You can get therapeutic doses for about $2, while the supplement industry pushes products with absorption rates as low as 4%. The magnesium market is worth over $2.3 billion globally, and most of it delivers suboptimal results. Here's why. After age 40, magnesium absorption drops to 30–40% in the gut due to decreased stomach acid production and changes in intestinal permeability. In 2016, industry lobbyists spent $847 million promoting magnesium oxide supplements, the cheapest form to manufacture, while suppressing research proving magnesium glycinate and threonate outperform by 600% in bioavailability. Why don't you hear this? Because whole food sources with naturally chelated magnesium would devastate their business model. But you're about to learn what they don't want you knowing. Now, let's talk about the crisis happening in your cells right now. Every 3 seconds, someone in the United States experiences a magnesium-dependent enzyme failure. By age 50, you've lost up to 40% of your cellular magnesium reserves. By age 70, that drops to 60%, affecting everything from ATP production to DNA repair to cardiac rhythm regulation. But researchers at the National Institutes of Health tracked 4,443 adults over 20 years who added just one specific magnesium-rich protocol daily. Cardiovascular disease risk dropped by 37%, type 2 diabetes incidence decreased by 48%, and all-cause mortality improved by 26% compared to the deficient control group. Your body contains roughly 25 grams of magnesium, with 60% stored in bones, 39% in soft tissues and organs, and just 1% in blood serum. This is critical to understand because standard blood tests miss deficiencies. You can have depleted cellular magnesium while blood levels appear normal. Doctors call this cellular hunger with serum sufficiency. The symptoms creep in slowly: muscle cramps that wake you at 3 a.m., eyelid twitches that last for days, that weird feeling where you can't quite catch a deep breath, chronic fatigue despite sleeping 8 hours, and anxiety that has no obvious trigger. Here's what's driving the deficiency epidemic. Modern agricultural practices have stripped 80–90% of magnesium from soil over the past 70 years. A study in the Journal of the American College of Nutrition compared mineral content of 43 crops between 1,950 and 1,999. Magnesium declined by 21% on average, with some vegetables showing drops up to 35%. Your grandmother's spinach contained nearly twice the magnesium yours does. Add to this our consumption of processed foods that actively deplete magnesium. Refined sugar, caffeine, alcohol, and high-sodium diets all increase urinary magnesium loss by 100–300%. The supplement industry knows this, which is why magnesium supplements are everywhere. But here's the deception. Walk into any pharmacy, and you'll find magnesium oxide, the cheapest form, dominating shelf space. This form has a bioavailability of just 4%. That means if you take a 400 milligram tablet, your body actually absorbs about 16 milligrams, while the rest becomes expensive, urine, or causes digestive distress. Magnesium citrate improves to 30% absorption, but acts primarily as a laxative. Magnesium glycinate, the form actually bound to amino acids for optimal absorption, costs 4 to 6 times more and sits on the bottom shelf where you won't notice it. But there's something better than all of them, something that costs about $2 per therapeutic dose and delivers magnesium in its most bioavailable form, alongside compounds that multiply its effectiveness. I'm talking about specific whole foods that provide chelated magnesium naturally bound to proteins, fiber, and cofactors that enhance absorption to 50–60%. The best sources? Raw pumpkin seeds, dark chocolate above 70% cacao, and properly prepared spinach. But timing and preparation method change everything, and 99% of people consume them wrong, destroying the very benefits they're seeking. Let me tell you about Robert, a 8-year-old accountant from Michigan, who'd been taking 400 milligrams of magnesium oxide nightly for 3 years, with zero improvement in his chronic leg cramps and insomnia. His doctor dismissed his complaints, saying his blood magnesium was normal. When Robert switched to consuming 1/4 cup of raw pumpkin seeds about 90 minutes before bed, roughly 190 milligrams of highly bioavailable magnesium, his leg cramps disappeared within 4 days. Within 2 weeks, his sleep tracker showed he'd increased deep sleep from 11% to 23% of total sleep time. After 8 weeks, his resting heart rate dropped from 76 to 64 beats per minute, and his blood pressure decreased from 138/88 to 122/78 without changing any other variable in his life. So, what happens in your body when you consume magnesium in its optimal form at the optimal time? Let's walk through the cascade hour by hour, because understanding this will change how you think about something as simple as eating seeds before bed. Within the first 2 hours after consuming highly bioavailable magnesium, your nervous system begins responding. Magnesium acts as a natural calcium channel blocker. Think of calcium as the accelerator pedal in your nervous system and magnesium as the brake. When you're deficient, calcium floods into nerve cells unchecked, creating a state of hyperexcitability. This is why anxiety, restlessness, and muscle tension cluster together. The magnesium you just consumed starts binding to NMDA receptors in your brain, which regulates the neurotransmitter glutamate. Too much glutamate overstimulates neurons to the point of damage. Magnesium calms this excitatory cascade. Within 90 minutes, people report feeling what they describe as calm energy or relaxed alertness. Hours 3 through 6 bring the muscle relaxation cascade. Magnesium enables the sodium-potassium pump that controls muscle contraction and relaxation. Without adequate magnesium, this pump malfunctions and muscles stay in a semi-contracted state. This explains why deficient people wake up with sore jaws from clenching, tight shoulders from unconscious tensing, and why their muscles feel stiff even after stretching. As bioavailable magnesium floods your system, approximately 300 enzymatic reactions begin optimizing. The muscle fibers in your calves, which might have been cramping for months, finally receive the signal to fully relax. Your diaphragm, the primary breathing muscle that might have felt tight, suddenly allows those deep, satisfying breaths you haven't taken in years. Between hours 7 and 12, if you timed your magnesium intake correctly before sleep, something remarkable happens to your sleep architecture. Magnesium increases GABA, the neurotransmitter responsible for calming the nervous system and promoting deep sleep. Research published in the Journal of Research in Medical Sciences followed 46 elderly subjects given 500 milligrams of magnesium before bed for 8 weeks. They increased sleep time by 47 minutes, decreased sleep onset latency, the time it takes to fall asleep by 17 minutes, and most significantly, increased sleep efficiency from 73.2% to 84.6%. Sleep efficiency is the percentage of time in bed actually spent sleeping versus tossing and turning. But the real magic happens in the deep sleep stages. Specifically, slow-wave sleep, where your body performs cellular repair, consolidates memories, and releases growth hormone. Magnesium deficiency fragments this critical sleep stage, meaning you cycle through it rapidly without spending adequate time there. When magnesium normalizes, subjects spend 35% more time in slow-wave sleep. This is why people report waking up not just more rested, but mentally sharper, with better mood regulation and reduced inflammation. Days 2 through 7 initiate the cellular energy transformation. Inside every cell, you have mitochondria. Think of them as tiny power plants that generate ATP, your body's energy currency. Here's the key. Magnesium is required for ATP to be biologically active. Without magnesium bound to it, ATP cannot transfer its energy to power cellular processes. This is called the magnesium ATP complex, and it's fundamental to every energy-dependent reaction in your body. A 2017 study in the journal Nutrients found that even mild magnesium deficiency reduces cellular ATP production by 15–20%, creating a state of chronic fatigue that no amount of sleep or caffeine can fix. As your cellular magnesium stores replenish over the first week, mitochondrial function optimizes. Studies show ATP production increases by 20–30%, which translates to tangible improvements people notice. They can climb stairs without becoming winded. They can focus for longer periods without mental fatigue. They recover faster from exercise, and that 3 p.m. energy crash that required coffee suddenly disappears. This isn't a stimulant effect, you're not artificially boosting energy. You're removing the brake that was suppressing your natural energy production. What makes the $2 solution so powerful isn't just the magnesium content. When you consume a quarter cup of raw pumpkin seeds, you're getting 190 milligrams of magnesium, but you're also getting zinc, iron, omega-3 fatty acids, and tryptophan, the amino acid that converts to serotonin and then melatonin. This combination creates synergistic effects that isolated supplements cannot replicate. The healthy fats in the seeds slow digestion, providing sustained magnesium release over hours instead of the sharp spike and crash you get from most supplements. The fiber feeds beneficial gut bacteria that actually improve mineral absorption. The protein provides amino acids that facilitate magnesium transport across cell membranes. Dark chocolate above 70% cacao provides a different benefit profile. A 100-gram bar contains approximately 230 milligrams of magnesium, but it also delivers flavonoids that improve endothelial function, the lining of your blood vessels, and theobromine, a mild vasodilator that enhances blood flow. The combination of magnesium and these compounds creates measurable improvements in blood pressure. A meta-analysis published in the American Journal of Clinical Nutrition pooled data from 20 studies involving 856 subjects and found that consuming 50 to 100 grams of dark chocolate daily reduced systolic blood pressure by 4.5 mmHg and diastolic by 2.5 mmHg, comparable to some blood pressure medications. The critical variable most people miss is timing. Magnesium competes for absorption with calcium, iron, and zinc. If you consume magnesium with a meal high in these minerals, say a steak dinner with cheese, your absorption drops to 20–30%. But if you consume it strategically, about 90 minutes before bed on a relatively empty stomach, absorption jumps to 50–60%. This timing also coordinates with your body's natural cortisol drop and melatonin rise, enhancing the sleep-promoting effects. You're working with your circadian biology, not against it. Now let's go deeper into the science, because understanding the mechanisms will help you appreciate why this works and how to optimize it for your specific situation. Magnesium is the fourth most abundant mineral in your body, but calling it just a mineral undersells its importance dramatically. It's more accurate to think of magnesium as a master regulator, a conductor orchestrating over 300 enzymatic reactions that control everything from DNA synthesis to cardiac rhythm to blood sugar regulation. Here's where it gets fascinating. Every single molecule of ATP, adenosine triphosphate, your cellular energy currency must be bound to a magnesium ion to be biologically active. The active form isn't ATP, it's MgATP. Without magnesium, ATP is like a key that won't turn in the lock. A groundbreaking 2018 study published in the Journal of Nutritional Biochemistry used magnetic resonance spectroscopy to measure intracellular magnesium and ATP levels in muscle tissue. They found a direct linear correlation. For every 10% decrease in cellular magnesium, ATP production dropped by 12–15%. This explains why magnesium deficiency manifests primarily as crushing fatigue that feels different from regular tiredness. It's literally a deficit in cellular energy production. The calcium-magnesium relationship is equally critical and widely misunderstood. Calcium triggers muscle contraction, nerve firing, and hormone secretion. It's the gas pedal. Magnesium enables muscle relaxation, nerve calming, and hormonal balance. It's the brake pedal. The optimal ratio is debated, but research suggests 2–1 calcium to magnesium for most people. Here's the problem. The average American diet provides a 5–1 or even 10–1 ratio due to dairy consumption, calcium-fortified foods, and magnesium-depleted produce. This imbalance creates a state of cellular hyperexcitability, muscles that won't fully relax, nerves that fire too easily, blood vessels that constrict excessively, and a heart that beats with unnecessary force. A 2019 meta-analysis published in BMC Medicine pooled data from 40 prospective cohort studies involving 1,057,332 participants followed for an average of 11.5 years. They found that for every 100 milligram increase in daily magnesium intake, cardiovascular disease risk decreased by 7%, stroke risk dropped by 8%, type 2 diabetes incidence fell by 19%, and all-cause mortality improved by 10%. Think about that, a 100 milligram increase, roughly what you'd get from a handful of pumpkin seeds, created measurable reductions in the diseases killing most people in developed countries. The mechanism behind the cardiovascular protection involves multiple pathways. Magnesium relaxes smooth muscle in arterial walls, reducing peripheral resistance and lowering blood pressure. It inhibits platelet aggregation, making blood less likely to form dangerous clots. It stabilizes cardiac rhythm by regulating potassium and calcium channels in heart muscle cells. This is why intravenous magnesium is standard treatment in emergency rooms for certain arrhythmias. It reduces inflammation by suppressing C-reactive protein and interleukin-6, two markers consistently elevated in cardiovascular disease. A 2016 study in the journal Atherosclerosis found that participants with the highest magnesium intake had 58% lower arterial calcification scores compared to those with the lowest intake. For diabetes prevention and management, magnesium's role is equally impressive. It's required for insulin secretion from pancreatic beta cells and for insulin receptor function on cell surfaces. When you're magnesium deficient, both insulin production and insulin sensitivity decline, creating a double hit that drives blood sugar higher. The Nurses' Health Study, which followed 85,060 women for 18 years, and found that women consuming 320 milligrams or more of magnesium daily had a 33% lower risk of developing type 2 diabetes compared to those consuming 255 milligrams or less. Among people already diagnosed with diabetes, supplementing with 360 milligrams of magnesium daily for 4 months improved HbA1c, 3-month average of blood sugar, by 0.31%, comparable to some diabetes medications. The research on brain health and mental wellness is perhaps most compelling because the effects are felt so rapidly. A 2017 randomized controlled trial published in PLOS ONE gave 126 adults with mild to moderate depression either 248 milligrams of magnesium daily or placebo for 6 weeks. The magnesium group showed significant improvements on depression rating scales, with 61% reporting clinically meaningful symptom reduction versus 38% in placebo. What's remarkable is that improvements appeared within 2 weeks faster than most antidepressants take effect. The proposed mechanism involves magnesium's regulation of the HPA axis, the hypothalamic pituitary adrenal stress response system, and its role in producing serotonin and dopamine. So now you know the science. Let's talk about the exact protocol, the what, how much, when, and why that transforms this from interesting information into a practical intervention you can implement tonight. The $2 solution comes down to 3 primary whole food sources, each with distinct advantages. First, raw pumpkin seeds, also called pepitas. A quarter cup, roughly 32 grams, provides 190 milligrams of magnesium in the highly bioavailable glycinate and threonate forms, naturally chelated to amino acids. You'll also get 9 grams of protein, 2.4 milligrams of zinc, 2.5 milligrams of iron, and 560 milligrams of tryptophan. The cost? About $1.50 per therapeutic dose if you buy in bulk. Here's exactly how to use them. Purchase raw, unsalted pumpkin seeds. Roasting reduces magnesium content by 15–20% and damages the delicate omega-3 fats. Take 1/4 cup, approximately 90 minutes before your target sleep time. You can eat them plain, but slightly grinding them in a mortar and pestle or briefly pulsing in a food processor breaks the outer shell and increases absorption by 25%. Some people mix them with a tablespoon of raw honey or a few dates. The simple carbohydrates trigger a small insulin response that helps shuttle magnesium into cells more efficiently. Chew them thoroughly, the mechanical breakdown starts the digestive process and prevents you from passing intact seeds. Second option, dark chocolate above 70% cacao content. A 100-gram bar contains 230 milligrams of magnesium plus beneficial flavonoids and theobromine. The key is quality cheap chocolate often contains high amounts of cadmium, a toxic heavy metal that accumulates in cacao plants. Stick with brands that test for heavy metals. The extra $2 for quality chocolate is worth avoiding cadmium exposure. Consume 40 to 50 grams in the evening, about 2 to 3 hours before bed. Why earlier than the pumpkin seeds? The caffeine content in chocolate, though lower than coffee, can affect sensitive individuals. The 2 to 3 hour window allows the magnesium to absorb while the caffeine metabolizes. Third option, properly prepared leafy greens, specifically spinach. A full cup of cooked spinach provides 157 milligrams of magnesium. But here's the critical preparation detail most people miss. Spinach contains high levels of oxalates, compounds that bind minerals and reduce absorption. Boiling spinach for 2 to 3 minutes, then discarding the water, removes 3087% of oxalates while retaining most magnesium. Steaming doesn't work, the oxalates remain. After boiling and draining, sauté with olive oil or butter. The fat dramatically improves magnesium absorption by slowing gastric emptying. Add this to your dinner, and you've front-loaded magnesium for evening optimization. You can combine sources strategically. Many people do 40 grams of dark chocolate mid-afternoon for that subtle energy lift without caffeine's jitters, then a quarter cup of pumpkin seeds before bed for sleep enhancement. This delivers approximately 322 milligrams total, well within the recommended dietary allowance of 320 milligrams for women and 420 milligrams for men, but distributed in a way that maximizes benefits. Now, let's talk about what to pair with magnesium to multiply its effectiveness. Vitamin D acts synergistically. It improves magnesium absorption in the intestines, and magnesium is required for vitamin D to convert to its active form. They need each other. If you're taking vitamin D supplements, take them with your magnesium-rich food. Vitamin B6 is the other critical cofactor. It facilitates magnesium transport across cell membranes and into mitochondria, where it's needed for energy production. Pumpkin seeds naturally contain B6, which is another reason they're superior to isolated supplements. If you're using chocolate or spinach, consider adding foods high in B6, like bananas, chickpeas, or salmon. Avoid taking magnesium with calcium supplements, dairy products, or high phytate grains like wheat bran. All compete for absorption. Space them by at least 3 hours. If you're taking thyroid medication, separate by 4 hours. Magnesium can interfere with levothyroxine absorption. Proton pump inhibitors for acid reflux drugs like omeprazole reduce magnesium absorption by up to 40%. If you're on these medications long term, you almost certainly need additional magnesium, but in a form that doesn't require stomach acid for absorption, like magnesium glycinate powder dissolved in water. Now, the important safety conversation, because even though magnesium from food is generally extremely safe, some people need to be more careful. If you have kidney disease, specifically if your estimated glomerular filtration rate is below 30, listen closely. Your kidneys regulate magnesium excretion, and when they're not functioning properly, magnesium can accumulate to dangerous levels, causing hypermagnesemia. Symptoms include muscle weakness, low blood pressure, irregular heartbeat, and in severe cases, cardiac arrest. If you have chronic kidney disease, do not increase magnesium intake without explicit approval from your nephrologist. They might want to monitor serum magnesium levels every few months. Important about blood pressure medications, magnesium has natural blood pressure lowering effects. If you're taking ACE inhibitors, ARBs, or calcium channel blockers, adding significant magnesium from food can potentiate these effects, meaning your blood pressure might drop more than intended. This isn't necessarily dangerous, but it can cause dizziness, lightheadedness, or fatigue. Start with smaller amounts, say 2 tablespoons of pumpkin seeds instead of a quarter cup, and monitor your blood pressure at home for the first 2 weeks. If it drops below 110/70 consistently, talk with your doctor about potentially adjusting medication doses downward. For people taking antibiotics, particularly tetracyclines or fluoroquinolones, Magnesium binds to these drugs in your digestive tract and drastically reduces their absorption. Space magnesium-rich foods by at least 3 to 4 hours before or 6 hours after antibiotic doses. Similarly, bisphosphonates for osteoporosis drugs like alendronate should be separated from magnesium by at least 2 hours. Pregnant and breastfeeding women can safely consume magnesium-rich foods in normal dietary amounts. In fact, requirements increase during pregnancy to 350 to 360 milligrams daily due to fetal development and increased blood volume. The concerns around magnesium supplementation during pregnancy relate primarily to high-dose supplements exceeding 700 to 800 milligrams from pills, which hasn't been studied adequately. Food sources at the amounts we're discussing, 200 to 300 milligrams additional, are not only safe, but beneficial for preventing pregnancy complications like preeclampsia. However, if you have any pregnancy complications or are on magnesium sulfate therapy for preterm labor prevention, coordinate any dietary changes with your obstetrician. One more caution worth mentioning: people with heart block or severe cardiac conduction abnormalities should approach magnesium more carefully. While magnesium generally improves heart rhythm, in specific conduction disorders where electrical signals are already delayed, additional magnesium could theoretically slow conduction further. If you've been diagnosed with second-degree or third-degree heart block, check with your cardiologist before significantly increasing dietary magnesium. For everyone else, which is the vast majority of people, dietary magnesium from these whole food sources is remarkably safe. The body has sophisticated mechanisms to excrete excess magnesium through urine and stool. The only common side effect from overdoing food-based magnesium is loose stools, which serves as a natural ceiling preventing true toxicity. If you experience this, simply reduce the amount by half. So, what should you expect in terms of results, and what timeline are we talking about? Within the first week, sleep improvements are usually the first noticeable change. Falling asleep faster, fewer nighttime awakenings, waking more refreshed. Muscle cramps often resolve within 3 to 5 days. That subtle background anxiety or feeling of being wired typically softens within the first 10 days. Energy improvements come next, usually evident in week 2 as cellular ATP production optimizes. You'll notice you're not reaching for that afternoon coffee as desperately. Weeks 2 through 4 bring mood stabilization and stress resilience. The HPA axis starts functioning more efficiently, meaning stressful situations don't trigger the same exaggerated physiological response. Your heart rate variability, a measure of nervous system balance, typically improves measurably. If you're tracking blood pressure at home, this is when you'd start seeing consistent reductions of 3 to 7 mmHg systolic and 2 to 4 mmHg diastolic. Months 2 and 3 are where cardiovascular and metabolic benefits become more apparent. If you're monitoring fasting blood sugar, you might see reductions of 5 to 10 g/dL. If you get blood work, inflammatory markers like C-reactive protein often decrease by 15–30%. Arterial stiffness, measured by pulse wave velocity, begins improving. This is an early indicator of cardiovascular health that predicts future risk better than cholesterol in many studies. Long-term, meaning 6 months and beyond, with consistent magnesium optimization, if you're talking about genuine disease risk reduction, the kinds of benefits seen in those large epidemiological studies I mentioned earlier. Lower rates of atrial fibrillation, reduced bone loss, decreased migraine frequency, better insulin sensitivity, and improved cognitive function as you age. These aren't dramatic transformations you'll notice day to day. They're the slow, steady optimization that compounds over years into dramatically different health trajectories. Here's my challenge for you tonight. Choose one of these protocols: pumpkin seeds, dark chocolate, or properly prepared spinach. Get the highest quality version you can find. Take the exact amount I specified at the time I recommended. Pay attention over the next 7 days to 3 specific markers: your sleep quality, any muscle tension or cramping, and your overall energy levels in the afternoon. Notice your body's response. This isn't about blind faith in some internet health claim. This is about applying documented, peer-reviewed science and empirically observing the results in your own physiology. The transformation begins with one conscious choice tonight. 1/4 cup of pumpkin seeds, consumed with intention and consistency, can catalyze measurable improvements in cellular energy production, nervous system function, cardiovascular health, and metabolic efficiency. You're not adding some exotic superfood that costs $40 per ounce. You're correcting a fundamental nutritional deficiency that's affecting nearly three-quarters of the adult population using whole foods that have sustained human health for millennia. The science is clear, the benefits documented, the mechanisms understood, the safety profile excellent. The choice is yours.